Welcome. We have Terry Mathews here with us today doing the Leadership Lounge fireside chat with us. So before we get started, I'm going to read a quick bio about you, Terry, just to give our members an understanding of who you are and your past experience. So Terry Mathews is a marketing and business strategy leader with extensive experience helping many of North America's top financial institutions and retailers build powerful loyalty, payments, and financial services programs. Recognized for his creativity and strategic insight, Terry has a proven ability to turn complex challenges into growth opportunities, enhancing brand performance, customer engagement, and revenue. Over his career, he's led some of the continent's most successful loyalty, credit, and gift card programs, and has partnered with brands such as Wayfair, Walmart, Loblaws, Sobeys, Hudson's Bay, Saks Fifth Avenue, Canadian Tire, Second Cup, and Staples. Starting his career in-store in Canada's largest grocery retailer, Terry developed a strong operational foundation before moving into marketing and discovering his passion for customer loyalty and payments. Today, he brings deep expertise in payments and customer loyalty, creating data-driven practical strategies that deliver real results for both businesses and consumers. Wow. Well, thank you so much for being here, Terry. This is an amazing bio, and all the different places that you've worked and partnered with is incredible. So we really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Terry, so much. It's amazing to have you on here. That is quite the career so far. What we'd like to start with is, could you tell us a little bit more about your career? Obviously, we've just been through the bio there, and importantly, when you started your career, where it ended, was that the vision, or has it taken lots of different twists and turns?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'm usually not that comfortable talking about myself, but we'll give it a shot. So I really, my path was very unconventional. I started out working at Loblaws with no expectations, quite honestly. My desire was initially, if I can make $20,000 a year, I'm going to be great. And I ended up almost instantly leading a team. I was 18 years old, leading a team of 13 people, running a night crew and getting a multi-million-dollar a week store up and running every day. And then what I did was, I think the skill that served me the best was I listened. And I watched, and I asked questions, and I learned. And I recognized something very early on, was that you could learn from someone who's very good at what they do, but you can equally learn from someone who's not that good at what they do. Because what you should do and what you shouldn't do are equally as important. And you can apply those learnings, and I have, all through my career. The other thing that I learned along my unconventional route is that anything's possible, and that whatever your expectation may be of what your journey is going to be like, it is extremely unlikely that it will follow that path. It comes to mind a lady who I worked with at Royal Bank, who was very, very senior. And I asked her, I said, because I never went to university, but I'm always curious as to other people's journeys. And I asked her, I said, what did you study in school? She was a music major. She played the flute at an incredibly high level. But what she took from that was the discipline and the dedication that was required to get as good as she was as that to everything else she did as well. And that's how she became a leader in financial services, because she had that dedication and that drive and that willingness to learn and adapt. So I think those are some of the main things that I've observed many, many times. The path is probably going to be unconventional. You can plan it as best as you like, but you need to be able to think on your feet and take advantage of opportunities as they come up. And those will come. and you probably won't expect them when they do or where they come from.
Yeah, and that's incredible because you got to like exec level in your career, and you were at an executive level for such a long time, and it's so interesting that when you say you were so humble at the beginning, having a team so quickly, so big, but to just take a step back and realize that you just needed to listen and learn from them. Yeah, that's incredible. And what did it like going back to that? How was that transition? Like, were you working alongside peers at that time and then started leading them, or you just suddenly found yourself with direct reports? And can you tell us more about that when you like other things that you learned when you started leading people? Was there some challenges that you had to learn about yourself quickly to be a leader?
Yeah, it happened very, very quickly. And it was very interesting that I was working the largest store in the division, and I was a clerk. And the store manager calls a meeting, and he was very big on theater, which is kind of surprising, but he was. So he had 15 or probably 18 people in the room, and there was a lot of changes happening in the division. And he talked about different individuals. You're getting promoted to here. You're going over here. You're going to this store. You're going into the office. And he orchestrated all that. And there was about 5 people that expected that they were going to be running the store. I was not one of them. I ended up running it. And he announced it. He didn't tell me anything beforehand. He announced it in that meeting. And I was terrified and excited beyond belief at that. And all these other people that were thinking they were going to be doing this job, they were going other places. So it made me think and reflect and understand, what have I learned from this point about who I've watched and what they've done and how they've done it. And I applied some of that. But one of the things that I did was I tried to make sure, and quite honestly, I learned this from my father, is how do you get the best out of people? And that's by using their strengths, understanding them, listening to them, putting them in a position where they'll actually like what they're doing, making sure that you can provide guidance and direction, but don't tell.
Yeah.
Don't tell them what to do. Don't stand over their shoulder, and make sure that another very basic tenet that I learned so early on is when someone does something well, make sure there's people around when you tell them.
Yeah.
When someone doesn't do something so well, that's a side conversation.
Yeah.
And I can give you a subtle example of how that worked incredibly effectively for me when I became a store manager. I had 250 people in my store. And one of the things that everyone had on their name tag was their name, right? Very simple. But the interesting thing was I worked in an area, this was in New Brunswick, that's bilingual. Well, I offered to everyone, I said, well, if you'd like to have your name en français, in French, on your name tag, you do that. If you want it in English, you do that. If you wanted it bilingual, you do that. It was unbelievable what that did for people. Then what I did is on the back of that name tag, I put the 3 basic tenets of customer service printed on the back of the tag that no one would see. But the idea behind it was this. I didn't want to have to go up to someone and say, Nigel, you should have said hello to that customer. You should have greeted that customer. Or Nigel, why didn't you thank that customer for shopping with us? That's not a good experience.
Yeah.
But if I walk up and I say, hi, Nigel, how are you doing? Don't forget. And I tap the name tag, there's the message.
Yeah.
Customer doesn't know. Nigel knows.
Mm-hmm.
Great explanation, great interaction, very positive, just a gentle reminder. I had the most amazing customer service because everyone, because they wore it every day, a very simple thing. Greet the customer, thank them for shopping with us, ask them if you can help them. That's not tough, but that little tap on the lapel, that went a long, long way. So it's
Yeah.
little things like that.
Yeah, and I think that's great, Terry. So I think we, especially the big companies and any company really, can get so like involved in what are the big things that we need to implement.
Yeah.
And most time it's just the simple things like you've mentioned there that can make such a difference that we kind of overthink things sometimes when the answer's right in front of us for something as simple as that.
Yeah. Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At Leadership in Life, we really do teach and build a lot about self-awareness, about empathy, about communication and ethics. Obviously, we know these skills can take you from fear to confidence, but can you think of a time when you've struggled with any one of these, whether it be self-doubt, communication, or dealing with different kind of emotions?
Yeah, I think I got thrown into a lot of different jobs out of the blue. Something I would get a role, say store manager, that went pretty well. Within 2 years, sales grew 50%. We went from $400,000 a week to $600,000 a week, losing $250,000 a month to making $250,000 a month in 2 years. So from that success, I was parachuted into running marketing for an entire division. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And this is no, yeah, it's, I was interviewed at McDonald's by the VP and he told me what he wanted to do. And I said, I don't even look at the ad. And he said, you're perfect. Because he wanted a new perspective. And I went in with an open mind, didn't ask lots of questions for the first couple months. At the end of the day, we cut the advertising budget by 50% because it wasn't doing anything. It wasn't being measured properly. It wasn't driving results. And the interesting thing was at the convention where we had, and this was a wholesale business, a franchise business rather, when we had the convention, I had all the franchisees coming to me and saying they were so pleased with the marketing that was going on because there was so much that was really working for them and driving results and doing it. We cut the budget 50%. It was just waste. But all I did was listen to the people who were in the department, listen to their experience, listen to the franchisees, and then make my own observations and determine what's the right path forward. But it was very collaborative, it was very focused, and it was very thoughtful. And I think that was the difference. It wasn't me coming in going, we're going to do this. It was, let's go in, let's evaluate, let's listen to people. What's the right path forward? And a little bit of a measured approach can work wonders.
Yeah. Obviously, you've been very successful in your career, Terry, and I know that leadership's been a big part of how you've managed to build that success. But have you worked under leaders that you would spring to mind now that you think they were the kind of people that I aspired to be, and their leadership skills are the ones that I took on board as well through my career?
Absolutely. I can name names. I worked for a gentleman by the name of Todd Beck in a store. He was brilliant. When Microsoft first came out, that was downloaded in the store. No one knew anything about computers. I'm dating myself horribly, but there was all kinds of training that was offered. Todd locked himself in a room for 2 days. He learned the entire program himself. He knew it better than anyone else. So you can learn from that. Like he was focused, he realized it was important, and he put the effort into it. I worked for a gentleman in Atlantic Canada named Peter Turcotte. I learned the value of data there. I learned about how to follow data and understand the answers that it gives you, the questions that it can also provide, and the direction that it can give to you. So there's been a lot of people like that. There's other people who, Don Reed, he was a CFO at Loblaws, incredibly brilliant man. One of his primary skills was simplifying complex situations.
Yeah.
And what that did was it enabled a broad swath of people to understand the problem.
Yeah.
And with that, then you can get buy-in when you have a plan. So Don's ability to simplify and bring that message to a large group of people and have a consensus and an understanding of the situation or the problem was huge. So there's been innumerable people, but as I said earlier, my primary strength probably is listening, understanding, and I have no problem being repetitive.
Yeah, and repetitive's good because, like, going
Absolutely.
back, make sure people understand and to clarify. People need telling a few times, so that's good. Can I go back to when you got that job, because it stuck with me that when you got that job originally and you weren't expecting to get it and you were suddenly managing a huge team, did the manager at the time who chose you, did he tell you why? Why you? Why were you not expecting it? And why were you the chosen one? What were you doing that really stood out and shone to him?
Yeah, I think well, what he did tell me, gentleman's name was John Rouleau, and what he did tell me was it was my inquisitive nature. I was always bugging him. I was always asking questions. I was trying to understand margins, trying to understand customer preferences. I'd get into traffic flows and shelf positioning and opening hours and staffing and in detail. I'd ask him questions about different providers and how we schedule labor, and it never ended, but I was inquisitive. It was interesting. A lot of people could look at a grocery store and think, oh, there's not too much of that. The reality is it's an incredibly difficult and complex business to run. It's ever changing. There's all kinds of incredible demands on you, and it's retail. So you got to move quick. And I think it was my inquisitiveness and my ability to communicate and work with people. And very, very early on, I recognized what I said earlier is that put people in a position to succeed in a place where they're happy, and they will. And I think he saw those things in me, and he thought, because the youngest person that he overlooked above me was 10 years my senior, was 28. I was 18. And it did work out pretty well.
Yeah,
That's amazing. Yeah.
It's just interesting to hear you talk there, Terry, because just thinking about when we go on about leadership in life, about self-awareness, but just then you were touching on you kind of knew yourself enough to know what your strengths were, what your weaknesses were, and then as you implemented these, just some of the little things you spoke about then about the job and how you got the job. I just find that speaking with people like yourself, it just reiterates the value of knowing what are my weaknesses, what do I need to work on, but my strengths, you've got this superpower that can more or less get you to achieve anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that that's held me in good stead all the way through my career. And asking questions, I never stopped asking questions. I always looked for interesting connections. I always tried to recognize people, and there's a few basic things that I learned early on too. Never hire yourself. You've already got one of you, so don't do that again.
I love that.
That's a very common mistake. Is I hire people I like, or I hire people that agree with me. Those are the two things that I've never done. I don't need two of me. I need someone to challenge me. I need someone who's going to question me. I need someone who's going to have a different perspective than me. And working together, we're going to be way stronger than we are individually. So that's one basic thing: is don't hire yourself. The other thing is elevate people.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that you're setting them up for success. This may be a snapshot in time for you, but this is their career. This is their life. They have a family. Understand and appreciate that, and make sure you're doing the right thing for them. And sometimes the right thing is helping them get better in their career, Sometimes it's more difficult than that, where you're actually going to tell them, this is not the right place for you.
Yeah.
You should be somewhere else. That doesn't mean that you're not a good person or you don't have strengths or skills. It just means that right here, right now, this is not the right place. So one's a much tougher conversation than the other, but they're both as important.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because a lot of people, when we talk about leadership, they think leadership's more on you've got to be nice to people, you've got to, you just got to more or less tell them what to hear. But to be a good, strong, true leader, it is building them up, motivating them, empowering them, and being a visionary for them, but also being honest with them as well, to let them know if they do have the weaknesses, that this may not be the right fit for them at this point of the career.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and another way I looked at that, because I'd seen this, I saw this very early in my career, is that weaker members of the team were, because leadership wasn't, didn't feel strong enough or didn't have the will to address the situation, they would let someone on a team do very little or deliver substandard results over an extended period of time. And the way I looked at that is that if you're allowing that to happen, you're saying to everyone, that's actually the standard you have. So you can do as little as you want. You can do a poor job. That's the standard. And that is a way to get to, at best, mediocrity. You're probably going backwards. So it is better for the team to recognize that if Amy's doing a great job, make sure she knows it. If Nigel's falling down, make sure he knows it. If he can't address it, then you've got to make something happen with that. Because if you don't, then you're saying, Amy, you're putting all that extra effort in. I don't really care.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So it's all of those pieces. Some are more fun than others, but that's part of being a leader.
That, what you've just said right there is that's just empathy. Exactly what you've said. You really understood what the person who's doing well, what the knock-on effect is of how you treat people, and that is just so crucial. And I had the pleasure many years ago now of working on your team, Terry, and you stood out to me as such an incredible leader that cared for every single person on the team and really got to know each person and took the time to understand them and help them. But exactly like you've explained, you had the ability to sit back and let people, kind of shine and bring their own thing to the table. But really, you really brought a really good team together, a really solid team. And I was only in it for a short time, but it was, in all honesty, one of the best teams that I've been in my career. And going back to that and just kind of talking about empathy, would you say that that's something that, because it's obviously natural to you, was that something that was natural as your leadership style that you recognized quickly? Or was there any point where you hit something in your, like while you were a leader, that kind of took you the wrong way, that was a big learning, a bit of a mistake, a bit of a ha-ha moment? Was there anything like that?
Well, I think it's interesting. So my parents were British. They came over after the war. And so they were pretty direct. Empathy was not huge for them. Yeah. But that's how they were brought up, right? Yeah. My father fought in Second World War. So my mom was in the army. So you can quickly figure out what that was like. They were very loving, caring parents, but they were more inclined to give you a handshake than a kiss. Yes. And I think I again, from listening and watching, I saw how my family operated, and as I grew up, I saw how other families and different people operated, and I took all of that, and I said, there's good pieces here, there's good pieces there. How do I blend this together? And I think that, and quite honestly, I struggled mightily with that because I'm a horrifically shy, introverted person.
Really?
Um,
And you must
I have stories. Oh yeah.
be
I
on
would never talk. I would never talk to two people in a room at the same time. I wouldn't do that. Early on, I couldn't do that. I actually went through a Dale Carnegie course, a 24-hour Dale Carnegie course that was full of humiliation and all kinds of unbelievable things that could actually be in a movie, and that broke it for me. 24 hours. It was unbelievable. But again, it was observational. I saw what other people did. I saw how people reacted to other people, and what seemed to work for people and what didn't. And I strove to understand that. Okay, I see them doing this. Why are they doing that? But more importantly than the why was, what's the effect of it? And does that get people on board? I played a lot of team sports. I played hockey a lot. And I was the captain on my hockey team for, I think, 10 years straight. And that wasn't because I tried to do that. It was because it wasn't really that competitive. People voted for the person who was going to represent the team. And that happened for me for 10 years straight. And that was because early on I listened to people, I tried to help people, and that was right from being a kid and watching my parents and watching other parents and other families, and I learned from that, and I just applied it, and that held me all that way through my life to this point.
And that's a really good point, because one of the things that we teach is that people are not born leaders, but we say leadership skills are like muscles. The more you practice them, the more you work them, the better you become at it. And we always have this vision that if you do take the time to work on them, that the possibilities are endless. And I mean, like yourself there saying, for someone who was quite an introvert to go on to managing huge teams across huge blue chip companies over an illustrious career, just kind of backs that theory up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been I went from I couldn't speak to more than two people at a time, and I actually structured things so I wouldn't have to do that, believe it or not. I can remember speaking in front of 4,000 people, and or accepting awards because of my store for some charity work that we did, or having to go out into the public and do speaking engagements and things of that nature. So I think the underlying thing there is that if I can do that, anyone can.
I love that topic, Terry, because I had the same issue. So I struggled heavily with public speaking. And when people think of public speaking, they just think, oh, standing on a stage and speaking to an audience. I was exactly the same. My public speaking was if there was a crowd of like maybe any more than 3 people, I just froze. I felt as if people's eyes looking at me was just seeing me, and it was a combination of public speaking and imposter syndrome. And it took me way longer than you to get over it. I didn't get over that until I think I hit around 30. And then it was a battle. It wasn't something that just happened. The practice took so long. Is that kind of when you say you went on the Dale Carnegie course and you realized, how long did it take you to kind of get over that horrible, nervous, horrible feeling, and with the practice that you had to do?
Yeah, and sorry, just to it. What was there something in that course that was the light bulb moment that were like, wow, this is it?
Absolutely. So I was on a store manager training course. There were 17 of us, and we were from every kind of background you can think. And we were put into this training course, and it was very intensive. And the way it was structured is that it was, I think it was about a 10 or 12-hour day. Everyone did a presentation. You went through some early stuff, conversations around, how you should approach it and things of that nature. But we did, I think, each of us, so think about that, 17, each of us did about 6 presentations that day. And those presentations went from being 15 seconds, they kept getting longer. And you started out with, you had to choose your topic, but you didn't have any, they just say, this is the area you're going to speak about. So you had no time to prepare. Initially, you had a very short presentation and you critiqued each other. So it was very intensive. At the end of it, you had to give a 5-minute presentation. So first of all, you're exhausted. You have to give a 5-minute presentation, and you choose the topic, and then you're told you have to physically act it out as you're presenting it.
Wow.
And there was, and so a few things happened. People ran out of topics. So it got pretty intense. One guy talked about his wife dying. Another guy, he talked about how he fell down a hill when he was at a party, and he fell down a hill and he was a little bit inebriated, and he fell down the hill. He had to roll around on the floor doing the same thing. So it was intensive, but it broke through, for me at least, and I think a lot of people, it broke through that, it's a conversation. It's just a conversation. And everyone's looking at you, is rooting for you to succeed.
Yeah.
No one is doing anything else. They all want you to shine. And I learned that day, but it was because of the length of the day and how it broke you down, and it opened you up to understanding those very simple concepts. Everyone wants you to succeed. It's just a conversation. And there's nothing wrong with taking a second and think about what you're going to say next. Well, they could have delivered that in about 45 seconds at the beginning of the day. It would not have worked.
No.
But it sure did at the end of that very, very long day.
Wow, I wish I'd have had that. That would have been perfect.
That is something very, very similar. I did the Dale Carnegie influential management course, and I don't think it was quite as intense as that, Terry, but it was a week-long course, but it was learning how to present and the public speaking and all the other kind of stuff that come with it. So I can kind of relate that it's very nerve-wracking. It sounds like yours was initially started off as a small speech and ended up being a short movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was emotional, it was taxing, it was moving, but it was also incredibly insightful. And we all appreciated each other. Like I said, there were 17 of us. So much more at the end of that.
So if you was to say to someone now, someone who's stepping out into the first role or stepping into the first leadership role, what advice would you give them?
Self-awareness is really important. What are you good at? What are you not good at? And how can you get better at what you're not good at? How do you ensure that your supporting cast is set up for success? And you've got to ensure that your supporting cast is set up for them to succeed, not just for you to succeed. Because if it's their success, then they're invested in that. Always, and I always struggled with this. It seems so obvious to me, but I always strove to hire or bring people in who were not just different than me, but I believe that they were smarter than me. And I've seen people who struggle with that because they're intimidated by, I can't keep up to them intellectually, or they know more about a particular subject than me, and that makes me look weak. Or I always went exactly the opposite way. I tried to hire the smartest person with the broadest range of skills, or that was very specialized if that was the right thing. But and that's just what all that did, was it elevated the entire team, because everyone would aspire to be the best. That's human nature. So I think those were key pieces for me. And then just recognizing good people when they do good things, and ensuring that they understand that, and ensuring everyone else knows that you know that as well. And then as you get higher up, whether it be a VP or an SVP or a general manager or any number of the different myriad of titles that I've had, is learning that it's important that you can't do everything, but what you can do, and this was really important for me, and when it first started happening early in my career, I was like, I thought this would work, and my God, it does, was give people guidelines and understand and make sure that they understand how you think and how you would evaluate a situation or a problem or an opportunity, so that they don't come to you and ask you, what do you want to do here? They already know. Because as example, this became a really big deal when I was a store manager. Well, a grocery store is open sometimes 100 hours a week. You're not going to be there 100 hours a week. Is it as important at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night that a customer experiences the same thing as they do at 9 o'clock in the morning when you're there? There's no difference. The fact that you're there or not is irrelevant. So making sure that you set things up so that your actual presence, whether it be in a meeting or something like that, fundamentally becomes irrelevant. And that's one of my goals I always had, was how do I make myself irrelevant? How do I make it so that everyone understands how I think and why that is, and all of those pieces that are attached to that, so that when they're making decisions, they're making the same decision that I would make. And nothing gave me greater joy than someone coming to me and saying, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, this is how it supports the strategy, and this is how it meshes into everything else that we're doing. And I'm thinking, I've never heard anything about this. And it's exactly what I'd want to do. And at that point in time, I knew that I'd done a good job as a leader, because I was no longer relevant. They knew the right perspective and the right path intuitively. And that means you move faster, more decisively, and you achieve a lot more in a very short period of time. And Amy, I would say that our financial services team at Walmart did exactly that.
Yeah, completely. 100% agree.
I think that's a prime example there of empowering people to be the best that they can be. Like I say, whether you're there or whether you're not, you've given them the confidence and the safe environment to express themselves to the best of their abilities, which is amazing.
Yeah. Terry, this has been amazing. I can honestly say that I will watch this back, because there's been so many golden nuggets dropped here. I actually made a few notes as we were going through, but then there were so many, I thought, right, I'm just going to watch it back myself. But honestly, thank you so much for this. This has been really, really amazing, and it'll be so helpful for people to listen to this and really help them along their career path, and definitely their leadership path as they're starting to lead people themselves.
Yeah, so. And just so you know, Terry, when we said we need to get something that's really going to be so impactful for us members, the first thing that Amy says, well, I need to get in touch with Terry Mathews.
Yeah.
If he shares his story, it's going to be life-changing for people. So
I did.
Thank you so much for this. I've learned a ton from this as well. I think we all have.
Yeah.
Just on listening to your story.
Yeah, amazing. And we'd love to have you back, maybe in a
certainly. Yeah. I that's another little thing too. And I've been very fortunate in my career. I worked 47 years full time. I did all kinds of things that, quite honestly, I had no right to have experienced, but I did. But I've learned from that, and I take a great deal of joy from sharing whatever I can and helping people. People help me in my career. I mentioned some people early on. There's way more. And so I think it's incumbent upon you, if you have some level of success, to pass that on and help other people be successful.
Definitely. Help the next one in line, definitely.
Yeah,
and what's really helpful about this, with this kind of group mentorship environment, is some people really don't know how to go and ask questions to people for whatever fears they might have themselves. And it is difficult sometimes for people starting off in their career to go to somebody who's at an executive level and say, how did you get there? Did you have the same challenges as me? So this really helps people realize that everybody goes through this challenging journey, and this journey of self-awareness. And this journey of self-awareness is also something that's just not a one and done. It's continuing all the way through your
Yes.
life, learning and
It
growing.
just made me think of something. Early on, when I was a department manager, I went to a conference. There was about 4,000 people listening to this speaker. And he was all about customer service. And he was brilliant, just brilliant. And he did something at the end of the presentation that I couldn't believe. At the end of the presentation, he gave you his home phone number. And I diligently wrote it down. I waited a week and I phoned him. And he was astonished. He said, I speak to over 100,000 people a year. You're the first person that's called me in 2 years.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
People went, they saw it, they thought it was wonderful, and then they forgot all about it. I went, I saw it was wonderful. I thought about it, and then I said, I've got to talk to this guy. We maintained a relationship for 20 years after that.
Wow.
And I learned from him incessantly. But that was the startling thing for me, is that he put that out there, but so few people followed through. The learning there was, when an opportunity comes up, don't be shy, take advantage of it. There's something there for you.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Love it.
What a brilliant
100%.
story to end on.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Terry. This has been incredible.